Hey guys, Jay here and welcome to another cosplay tutorial. In 2019, I made Peach's crown from the Super Mario Bros. Series, and in 2020, I don't have it because it was a commission, but I made Rosalina's crown from Super Mario Galaxy. So I figured since I made those two, I should make the only other one left. I also needed a tutorial for this month. I'm working on other stuff and haven't been able to get anything done. So we're doing this instead. But that is Daisy's crown, the final princess from the Super Mario Bros. Series. So much like Rosalina's crown, it's very similar to Peach's crown, but not only is it very similar, it's damn near exact. It's literally the exact same pattern. The only difference is on this one I used metal button, DIY button things for the gems because I couldn't get any domes or whatever. These are ornaments that are split in half, and I couldn't find any in the right size at the time, but now I have a ton of them, so I was able to use them for this one. These are what you should use. I mentioned them, I believe, in this video, as well as I know for sure that I mentioned them in the Rosalina video. But this is literally exactly the same. It has the same pattern, I used the same half dowels for around here, and the only difference is it has this flower in front instead of one of these round things. That is literally all that's added to it. They are 100% identical. Also, there's not going to be a pattern specifically for this crown. Since this is literally just Peach's crown with a flower added to it, I'm just going to update that pattern to have this flower. I'm going to make it look a little nicer than mine because I'm going to actually vector it on the pattern itself and use an actual picture to trace it out and make sure it's equal on all sides. Mine isn't because I drew it, but yours can be if you follow the pattern correctly and cut it out right. But the updated pattern I will link in the description. So without further ado, let's get started. To start, I used the pattern I made for Rosalina's crown. I would have used the Peach one, but this was the first one I found in my pattern area, so it's slightly taller than my Peach one, but it doesn't really matter. I traced the pattern, including the circles, onto some 10mm EVA craft foam, and cut it out with a utility knife with all of the edges cut at 90 degrees. You can cut the top spiked pieces out on an angle if you want, it's up to you, but I chose not to so it matched my Peach one. I switched to an X-Acto knife to cut the circle details. I only cut part way though because I'm not trying to remove any foam. I'm just making an opening where I can stick some DIY ornament halves into the cuts. These are what I should have used in the Peach and Rosalina crowns. I just didn't have any when I did those. I add a line connecting each circle together and also cut this open with a knife. I did this exact same thing on both of the other crowns. This line as well as the circle cuts open up when I hit it with a heat gun. And at the same time, I can heat the entire crown and start rolling it to give it that right curve. Once the foam cools, I use contact cement on the two ends. And I use 2 coats because the first coat always soaks in a little too much. Once the cement dries enough, I stick the 2 ends together. You may need to check beforehand to see if you need to trim up one of the sides. Sometimes both sides might not be exactly cut out the same, so one ends up being a little taller than the other. If this happens, just trim it to be the same before you start gluing. For the flower on the front gem, I just made a little pattern and cut it out of 4mm foam, but I have updated the Peach crown template to have the flower on it so you can do either Peach or Daisy's crown from the same pattern. So you can just use that rather than drawing it freehand like I did. And now I start gluing the ornament halves in place. I just use super glue inside the cuts that I made on the circle details and press the ornaments into the cuts and hold it in place until it's dry enough to move to the next one. When I put the flower on, I super glue the top and bottom petals first, and then tack those down one at a time so I can get them placed right. Then I do the same thing for the other petals. Just like the Peach crown, I use 10mm foam dowels for the rounded trim that goes around the rest of the gems. This time I placed them on after the gems so I didn't screw up how they looked. There will be a link to some dowels that are already cut in half in the description, but I didn't have the time to order them, so I had to cut full dowels in half myself, which doesn't look as good, and I use super glue to attach these. For painting, I start by masking off the ornament halves with painter's tape. Then, and I couldn't film this, but I covered the whole crown in a few coats of plastic spray, then gold spray paint. However, I didn't like the gold color that I got. It was a little too dull for me. So I went back over it with royal gold acrylic paint and a mop brush to help get rid of the brush strokes. But if you can find a gold spray paint that you like the color of, do that. It'll look a lot better. I think the one I used might have been old or something. The last things I need to do is paint the gems and flower, but the plastic for the gems is too smooth, so I need to scratch it up with sandpaper first. Then I used the same red that I used on Peach's and Rosalina's crown, and some teal-like color. Mine isn't the correct color, it's just barely a little off. It's supposed to be some shade of teal or something that's slightly more green than blue. So like if you took teal and then maybe added a drop of green to unbalance it, something like that. Either way, find whatever you like best. And if you can find them in spray paint, even better. I brushed mine on because it was cheaper since I already happen to have those. And the last step was to paint that flower white. You can also hit it with a clear coat if you want, but depending on the gold you bought, that could ruin the color or dull it a lot, so just be really careful. But other than that, you're done. Alright, so that's how to make Daisy's crown from the Super Mario Bros. Series. Now, just like the other two, I didn't put anything on the bottom of this to put it on your head. That's because there are a few different things you can do. I mentioned them in the other videos. I believe I mentioned them in the Peach video, but I know for sure I did in the Rosalina video. But you could glue a headband onto here. So one of these headbands, it doesn't have to be this one specifically, but the wider it is, the thicker here, the more surface area you have to glue down. So it would be like that, and then you put it on your head. You can also use alligator clips, which, I mean, I have some, but you're not going to be able to see them on camera. But I'll post a picture of them, and then you can like glue them to the bottom and then clip them to the wig or your hair or whatever. There's probably other stuff too, I just don't know. If you have your own way of doing this, go right on ahead and do whatever you want. But you can also look up different ways to attach crowns to your head and just figure something out. There's a bunch of different ways. I just don't know how to do all of them because I never actually wear any like thing on my head other than a hat. So I don't really know what I'm doing with that. So just look that up or do whatever you think will work. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you like it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys later.